How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Crypto Clout. I'm your host, FaZe Crypto, and today I would like to discuss Cardano. And of course, I think that it's always entertaining to start off the video by watching the real moonshot that's happening right now. Of course, yes, it is the global debt. If one thing is mooning, it is the global national debt, and that's that's mooning far more than crypto ever could, but it also is sort of a foreshadowing of upcoming events and right on time. Of course, the federal deficit just broke 1 trillion. This tweet goes on to say there are now 1 trillion reasons to buy Bitcoin, and I think that this is also very relevant in the current time, discussing the current paradigm, and I think that it's all very relevant. And I'd also like to discuss Bitcoin in this video, of course, now clocking in at 10,230. Whether or not the moment-to-moment price action distracts you, or whether you're able to look beyond these things, I suppose is all up for debate. But this video is not about Bitcoin. It's actually about Cardano, which is in fact up 1.11% today. Of course, I want to start off by talking about this article right here, Cardano's potential in the real world. This is one of my most favorite altcoins to talk about, just because of real world potential. And this article goes on to say Cardano has dozens of top computer scientists, cryptographers, and mathematicians. They submit peers on their work for academic peer review, and their goal is to ensure each piece of crypto infrastructure they create is so solidly built millions will one day be able to rely upon it. And I think that this is very relevant. I mean, that's sort of music to my ears when we want to talk about a cryptocurrency. I think that it's going to be ultimately dependability. That's going to be a big, interesting variable. It's also going to be pretty significant, of course, when we're talking about Cardano. And I also want to discuss September. I think that it's important to talk about Shelly, IOHK, all these other things. It is going to be interesting to see Cardano Shelly successfully completes first phase of testing, announces Charles Hoskinson. So talking about our good boy Charles, founder, likes to say he's built a system to last 100 years. This is a sharp contrast to the approach taken by Ethereum or Bitcoin, Cardano's closest competitors. And of course, I think that this is going to set us up pretty perfectly to discuss, what we can expect to see as far as the overall place that these technologies are actually going to play in the world of crypto. So without any further ado, remember, this video is for entertainment, educational purposes only. Of course, I'm not your financial advisor. Of course, remember to subscribe, moon the likes. It always helps when you guys smash that like button. But of course, remember, I'm not your dad. So all the things that we discuss in this video, I do encourage you to go and do your own research when it comes down to it. I think that that's very important. But yeah, so when we want to talk about the news currently, I think we're really seeing something very interesting as far as the current paradigm and the shift that's taking place. And of course, how Cardano is really cementing its role. I would say, we have to talk about the natural evolution of how cryptocurrency has come along up until this point as well. I think that it's important to keep that in the rear view as well while we have this discussion. We want to talk about Bitcoin in its conception, the digital gold, and then of course Ethereum and smart contracts. And I would say that when we want to look at what Cardano is aiming to do, I think that it's often criticized as a more ambitious project than many, but I think that when you think about the future of these technologies, it's one of those cryptos that has a potential that, if it wasn't for Bitcoin's reputation, I don't think that Bitcoin would be where it is today. It really is the exception that proves the rule. In a large sense, Bitcoin's place in the space is essentially just because it was first to cement itself along that trajectory. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and knock Bitcoin Bitcoin. But of course, it is interesting. I think that this also, the fear that a lot of people have that something bigger and better could come along in terms of technology, almost like Bitcoin could go MySpace mode. I think that a lot of people, overlook the potential that's in store for a crypto that actually has some real potential in store for it. And I think that, I've heard before, and I think I read this in a comment, that the fact that Cardano doesn't actually have a product at the moment gives it a significant advantage, because it denies people the possibility of being able to point at a specific thing about it. This isn't going to last forever, but for the time being, that is one of its greater strengths. In fact, when you want to talk about the fact that it's more or less giving Cardano the potential to learn from the mistakes that are being made by other cryptocurrencies. And in fact, I think that this ultimately could be one of the better selling points long term when we want to talk about Cardano. And of course, the potential for that, of course, there's many other cryptocurrencies that face various other issues. When we want to talk about Ethereum and what ultimately could be the demise of the current cryptocurrency paradigm, I think could ultimately present itself as one of the greatest advertisements for Cardano that we've seen up until this point. Now, of course, this is thinking in like a long-term 5-year sort of trajectory point here, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a very long span of time whatsoever, especially coming right back around full circle. I think that right now something has got to give. The house of cards will inevitably fall in on itself. Fiat, all these unsustainable things, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 10, I think that cryptocurrency is sort of coming up and being seen as being taken more seriously for one, but of course at the same time, it is I think that all the power structures are well aware of what they need to do as far as hopping on the crypto train, before things, get going. But anyway, this is a funny article right here. I also wanted to bring up, now that we're nearing the end of the video, will President Trump appear at the rescheduled Buffett crypto launch? That would be interesting. I know, his tweets and all these other things were, of course, seen by many as a breakthrough for the crypto space. And just the fact that, we've gone from basements to boardrooms in such a short amount of time. The president of the United States is tweeting about, of course, the future of Bitcoin, whether it's positive or negative. All publicity is good publicity, and I think his reputation would definitely attest to that. But Ethereum could see further upside before a major downtrend. This is interesting as well. Ethereum is holding strong above a key trend line support that stands between it and the next big crash. The 1-hour chart for Ethereum USD shows us that the bulls may not only be able to defend, break below the trend line support, but they also may push the price above 183. And I think long term, we could see Cardano as the Ethereum killer. Essentially, when we want to talk about the amount of potential that's coming this long term, it is very interesting. We're looking at the market cap now at 263, and of course, well and aware that in the long term, all these things will just be history. I can't wait for people to look back on this video and validate a lot of the things that we've been talking about in this channel. I very famously was one of the people who was on here talking about how great of a sale it was to have Bitcoin at $3,000. And many people ignored me. People were in the comments saying that I was crazy at that time too. But I know that there's plenty of you out there, long-term subscribers who were well aware of the potential that we were seeing. And let's get this crypto. I hope you guys have enjoyed this content. I hope you guys have found my analysis interesting. And I'll see you guys next video. Make sure that you subscribe, post notifications on, all that YouTube stuff. See you guys next video. Have a good one.